13 ABC. Conklin and Company with 13 ABC Action News anchor Lee Conklin. First with what's happening behind the headlines. And Take 3, our panel of political analysts.
Good Sunday morning. Bill Horman sitting in for Lee Conklin on Conklin and Company, where we will literally go halfway around the world and then come back home again. We are going to talk about that big G20 summit in September in St. Petersburg, Russia, with a couple of folks from our Washington, D.C. bureau who will actually be attending that conference. We'll come back here to Toledo and talk about the fight against illiteracy. But first, the mayoral campaign here in the city of Toledo. It is heating up, and we are a little bit more than a month. No, we're probably about a month, I guess, from the primary election. Joining us this morning, Democrat Council Member Joe McNamara. Friday, you early voted.
Well, my supporters early voted.
Okay.
I'm going to do it on election day, more of a traditional thing for candidates, but I'm definitely encouraging everyone to vote early. It's an easy thing to do. Make sure you're able to get your vote in, have your voice be heard for the future of Toledo.
Why are you running for mayor?
I am running for Toledo because I want to build the best city possible. We have so many wonderful, phenomenal assets in Toledo, and we're just not where we need to be. Unemployment is at 9.3%. I want to see an economic development plan that works for Toledoans, that gives Toledoans the opportunity to raise their families and have fulfilling careers. And I'm not seeing that with the way things are going under the Bell administration.
I moved to Toledo 13 years ago from Washington, D.C., and the question I got from folks who lived in D.C. was, why would you want to move to Toledo, Ohio? And then I get here and people say, why in the world would you leave Washington for Toledo, Ohio? There's a perception problem we have in this town. In what way would you address that so that the city felt better about itself?
Well, I think part of the perception problem is the economic difficulty we've gone through. I mean, Toledo was hit very hard by the recession because of reliance on manufacturing. I think once we start getting more people back to work and having an economic development plan that makes sense, we're going to have more resources to do the things that we need to do, to keep up with our neighborhoods, to hire more police, and to do more interesting things with our downtown and Adam Street, and create that culture that makes that cool factor that makes cities attractive to people.
Then why are you so negative against Mayor Mike Bell, who's gone international and tried to increase Toledo's profile? That is one way of really creating a new mindset in this town. We
haven't seen the jobs come back for average Toledoans. The biggest disappointment is the Marina District. I'm from the east side, grew up on Platt Street and 6th, and the mayor said, hey, we've got this deal, they're going to do some things, and it didn't pan out. And with the unemployment rate, again, it's at 9.3%. It's way too high. And if the foreign investment created jobs for Toledoans, I'd be a lot more excited about it, but we're not really seeing that translate, which is why a big part of my campaign is a 5-point economic development plan that focuses on creating jobs for the people that live in the city. We need to do more to invest in ourselves to create job growth and grow our economy.
A 5-point plan is sometimes difficult to remember when you're on television, but can you remember enough of the plan to give us a...
Sure. I mean, the first part is local preference, which I've already passed on Toledo City Council, expanding the Better Buildings program, hiring a qualified economic development director, building a materials recycling facility in Toledo, and then adopting the Cleveland model of evergreen co-ops in disinvested neighborhoods. But the overall theme of the plan is let's invest in ourselves, let's focus on creating jobs for the people who live here, because in the economic development literature, that's what bolsters a community. When you increase the median income of the people that live in that community, you increase home ownership rates, educational attainment, access to health care. Everything is related to the economy and people's ability to work and to work fully.
And you don't think the mayor is doing a good enough job to attract jobs here in the city?
I think the numbers speak for themselves. The fact that unemployment's at 9.3%, it's just not good enough. And you can't blame Mayor Bell for the crash in the economy. You can't give him credit for the recovery. And all a mayor can do is take the most advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. And we're missing opportunities to invest in ourselves and create jobs here.
Is jobs number one?
Jobs is number one. Crime is number two. And I want to hire more police officers, which we can do if we grow our economy, because our largest source of revenue is the income tax. So when more people are working and more fully employed, the city is getting more in its coffers that we can hire police. And I'm also a big proponent of neighborhood police and fire stations. I want to reopen the Northwest District Police Station. I think neighborhood police and fire stations help anchor neighborhoods. I think they help keep people safer.
At what cost would you maintain fire station number 3? It closed down last September, I believe, so it's been closed almost a year. But there was an effort to to not utilize that facility any longer?
Right. Well, first off, as mayor next year, I'm going to make sure that we do checkups on our buildings, inspections, to make sure that little problems don't become big problems. And it sounds like there was a leak in that building over years that caused a problem with the facade. We need to do a better job keeping up with our assets so these little problems don't become big. But the neighborhood loves that fire station. The neighborhood loves those firefighters, and keeping that fire station where it was lowers the response time for fires in that neighborhood. So I think it was a really important public safety issue and a really important community neighborhood issue.
It's going to cost us more to save history, however. Why not tear it down, as some have recommended, build brand new? After all, if you're looking for an anchor facility in the middle of a neighborhood, a brand new facility maybe will spark other people to invest in that neighborhood.
One of the things that makes Toledo unique is the diversity of our neighborhoods and our history. When you look at the Vistula Historic District with all the beautiful Italianate homes there, when you look at the Old West End, the Edwardian and Victorian mansions there, it's the history of Toledo, the diversity of our neighborhoods that is such a strength. And you know, when people come here from out of town, they look at our housing stock, they look at all the different options of places they can live. That is part of what makes Toledo strong and attractive for people to live here. So keeping that historic building is part of the character of that neighborhood, and that's important. We can't forget our history, and we shouldn't demolish it.
Jobs number one, public safety's number two. The mayor of Toledo, by the end of the year, will probably have hired close to 185 police officers. Why is that not good enough?
Because of all the retirements and the people that left the force. There's actually less patrol officers on the force today than before mayor when he took office. And so
You don't blame him for that, do you? He's trying to keep up as best he can when previous mayors, Democratic mayors, didn't.
I'm going to call him when he jukes the stats, when the numbers aren't giving the full picture. So when he gives that number, he's not subtracting all the retirements and the officers that have left the force. So what is the real picture? What is the net gain? And right now, there isn't a net gain for patrol officers.
Should the mayor release the city's gang map?
Absolutely, and here's why. There is a model for dealing with gang violence out of cities like Chicago, Boston, Cincinnati. It's called different things. Some call it ceasefire, some call it the Cure Violence Initiative. And part of what that model is to engage the community in saying that we are not going to accept gang violence. And part of engaging the community is to let them know what the issue is. So by withholding the gang map, I feel that Toledo's attempt to adopt this model hasn't fully been enacted because the main information is not being shared with the community.
You're running for mayor. Why are you focused so much on Anita Lopez?
Well, there are two Democrats in this race. A lot of Democrats are looking for the person who can beat Mike Bell. And I've signed an ethics pledge. I think it's very important to be responsible with taxpayer dollars and to be honest and transparent. And what I've seen with Ms. Lopez is she has turned the auditor's office into a political machine, her own personal campaign machine, and it has cost taxpayers money.
Well, to that point, last week we did a story about a settlement that she had with 3 managers that she fired back in December of 2010. 5-6 months later, she settled for $71,000.
Right. So there's two sides of that coin. I think the message that people who work for Lopez see is if you work on her campaigns and you go to festivals and wear a shirt and put up signs and do all that, you can get big raises. And we saw that she gave $150,000 in raises to political cronies. But the flip side of that is if you don't support her political agenda, you lose your job. And that costs the voters $71,000 plus the $150,000. Lopez has not been saving taxpayer dollars. She's been costing taxpayers dollars because of the overt politicizing of the auditor's office. And I don't think the city of Toledo can afford that. We need the money to hire more police officers and firefighters and pave roads. We shouldn't be paying money on big raises for political cronies or settlements because people were improperly fired.
Joe, this 10 minutes goes really fast. We have a little less than a minute now. How are you going to conduct yourself the last month of this campaign?
I'm going to knock on as many doors as I possibly can and talk to voters one-on-one. I think Toledo is a wonderful place. People care. They're looking for passionate leadership to lead this city forward and to make it grow. And I feel strongly that that's me. I put it all on the line. I'm not running from cover.
You're not running for anything after this if you were to lose.
That's right. This is the end of my council term. I'm not jumping from office to office like you see some politicians do. I'm doing this because I think Toledo needs a passionate, creative leader that's going to be honest transparent, and ethical. And we've seen that when you're not, it costs taxpayers money.
13 ABC and the Toledo Blade will conduct a mayoral debate with the top 4 candidates Wednesday, September the 4th. Joe McNamara will be among those 4 candidates. Joe, thank you.
I can't wait. Thank
so much
you
for your time. Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much. Let's talk about fighting illiteracy in the city of Toledo and how we are doing that September 1st. Do that in just a minute.